Hey friends, welcome to our weekly Data Talk, a show where we talk with data science leaders from around the world. Super excited today to talk to Neil Sahota. He's the author of a brand new book called Own the AI Revolution, Unlock Your Artificial Intelligence Strategy to Disrupt Your Competition. We've had Neil on, I think it was it Neil, like a year ago? Has it been that long?
Yeah, about a year ago. Good memory.
That is so crazy. So we chatted last time about your work around AI for social good and some of the things you were doing with the United Nations. And you are still serving as an AI subject matter for them. You're also on faculty at the University of California, Irvine. We talked about you're an IBM Master Inventor. I think you have at least a dozen or more patents. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, you are doing so many things. You're so busy, and then you found time to write this brand new book that I'm super excited to talk with you about called Own the AI Revolution. Before we get into that, Neil, can you kind of share how your work with the United Nations started? Because that is just a fascinating story.
Well, I have to give credit to my good friend Steven Ibaraki. Really forward-thinking thought leader. He called me up one day and he's like, "Hey Neil, there's a big UN conference that happens like once every 4 years. You know, all the important people are there. They're wondering about artificial intelligence. You know, I'm on the organizing committee. I put your name forward for a 15-minute like TED Talk." And I'm like, "Yeah, right, Steven." Like, no, seriously. In
How
fact,
cool is that?
there's like a couple of the people on the UN said they had even heard you talk before. They said we should get that guy. You think he'll do it? And
Oh,
so I'm like, "Are
wow.
you serious?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Let's do it, man." So that's how I got started, and it's been phenomenal to work and try and help make the world a better place by partnering with the UN.
No doubt. So what was like your experience, first going in to go speak? Because obviously you have been doing so much work with IBM in the past, teaching, being a thought leader around artificial intelligence and AI for social good, going into the United Nations to now speak on literally a world stage, talking to world leaders about AI implications for business and the world. What was that like?
It was overwhelming.
Yeah.
I still remember walking into the venue as they were setting up for the day, and I was just blown away by the amount of people, the ambassadors, their staff,
Mm,
you know, other visitors and stuff, and seeing the UN in action. It was amazing.
mm,
I can't even describe the experience. It's like just something you have to be there to truly understand. And when I was called onto stage, that's kind of when the gravity was happening really hit
mm.
me. And it's like, wow, I have a chance to share and maybe influence the world leaders. And it's like, why in the world do they have me up here?
You are just so humble. They wanted to hear from you, and that is just so cool because literally it's like the world stage, like literally. The world is literally listening. So as you were kind of like developing kind of your message, like realizing like what an impact you're going to be able to make, and as you were kind of developing like what am I going to tell these leaders to help them kind of prepare for all the challenges ahead and also the opportunities? What were some of the things that you were thinking about and in preparation for your presentation originally back when you first met with them?
That's a great question because I was told in advance that a lot of people, they didn't really know it was AI. I mean, this is like, 4.5 years ago. They don't really know what it is, and there's actually a lot of fear. People really thought this was a Skynet moment, that machines are going to take
Mm-hmm.
over the world, eradicate humanity. And so it's like, oh my God, not only talking to the most important people in the world, they're already like anti-AI.
Mm-hmm.
So I just focused on like, one, how can I just do a little bit of education, simplify, wrap it in a story they can understand, but two, help them understand that AI is a tool. You can use it to create or you can use it to destroy, and there's an opportunity to create a lot of public services, do social good, and try and make the world a better place. And I had 15 minutes to do that. And so I just said, you know what? I'm going to stick to 2 points. Very basically, what is AI? But more importantly, how could the United Nations use it? Right? And tied it to the Sustainable Development Goals, because that's a key focus for them. And, I'm very proud to say that after that 15 minutes, you could see people's minds were starting to change. And later on that day, people were approaching me and asking me, like, your talk really resonated with me. I want to figure out what we can do. And out of those conversations, we started the AI for Global Good initiative, where today we've actually spooled up over 80 initiatives around the world, people volunteering resources, their time, equipment, to try and make the Sustainable Development Goals a reality. And, we're actually hosting our 3rd summit next week in Geneva. And so it's amazing how far we've come in a short time.
That is so cool. And how awesome is it that you were helping to like lead that conversation and get people thinking about all these amazing opportunities that AI could be used to improve our world. I think that is so cool that you were like literally there, kind of leading that conversation and helping people get over, to your point, the fears. Neil, what I think those fears are still like around. I see the headlines all the time, and what are some of like the basis for the fears that you're seeing?
That's a great question. And, one, I think, is people are just afraid what this means for them in the future. People are like, is my job going to go away? Is it going to get automated, or am I going to get replaced by a machine? And I totally get that. It's a very legitimate concern. I think the other thing is that a lot of people feel like they're just kind of passengers on this ride, and it's these companies or really smart technologists that are figuring things out, and whatever happens is going to wind up impacting their lives, and they don't have control, which I don't fully agree with. I think people have the opportunity to actually be a driver in this, and actually we're still at a stage where they could be a pioneer in this. So one of the reasons I wrote the book. But also, third, I think it's a humbling experience for us as society, as people. We've always kind of felt like we've had a special place in the universe, and that there's things that we could do that nothing else could do. But now we're seeing that machines can do some of these things. That we're seeing that we could teach an AI machine psychology, and so suddenly they, even though they don't feel emotions, they can do what's called artificial empathy. They can read our emotional state and respond accordingly. That people ironically are more honest talking to like a robot doctor, lawyer, or even accountant, even if they have their own human version for 20-25 years, because they don't feel like the machine judges them. So I think for us, it's an exciting time and it's a scary time, both at the same time, for that reason.
No, I'm glad you brought up the artificial empathy, because that is like a really fascinating area. I'm like, personally, I'm super excited about it, because I think I've been using some and testing out some different AI apps around managing stress and anxiety. And it's fascinating because I see a therapist every couple of weeks, just on a personal level. And I was looking for something to like in between that time to help me measure, my own anxiety levels and stress and those types of things. And I've uncovered a bunch of different apps that basically have these AIs that are helping to get you thinking, to be very self-aware about anxiety and stress, what's causing it, how can we reduce it based on past, conversations with the bot. And anyways, I'm like, this is great. Like, this is really cool, because I'm thinking about all the people that maybe have wanted to go to a therapist, but maybe felt like that fear of like, well, I don't really want to talk to someone. I don't want to be judged, even though a therapist is not there to judge you. But yeah, but you're right about talking to an AI bot about medical issues, mental health issues, whatever. there is that sense of, oh, well, I'm not going to be judged by this person. It's a bot.
Yep. And ironically, because of that, I think machines are getting better data, and with better data, can provide better service. At least we as people can provide better service. But it's an interesting dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's awesome. So so you've been doing all this work in the last 4.5, 5 years, partnering with the UN, leading conversations, talking with world leaders. Meanwhile, you were working in the field, working on all these different initiatives. I was reading, and I didn't know this about you, Neil, but you actually were on the AI team for the Watson bot that was on Jeopardy.
Yeah, that was a lifetime ago now.
I was like, wow. I remember like hearing about all about that in the news way back when, and I was like, oh, that is so cool that you actually were, involved in that.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people think, hey, AI is the new thing and all that, but the Jeopardy challenge was over 8 years ago, right? You think about it, it's like, wow. But
Right.
I think it just goes to show that there's still a world of opportunity here, and we're just seeing more and more things happening, especially in the last 18 months. I mean, it's an exciting time, and to be disruptive. I can't think of a better phrase. And I see that I've seen a shift in the last 18 months where a lot of people are wondering, hey, what is AI? There seems to be some foundational awareness to people now asking I wonder what I can do with it. I wonder what I can do either for my business, my community, myself, my family, or even, society as a whole.
Yeah. It's funny. And, over the last, 8-10 years where I've been seeing AI, incorporated into different things, like the experiences I've had early on, Neil, were not that great. Like I'm thinking about voice assistants, or even early product engines helping select books or music that I would like, or using Siri or something like that, or chatbots. I had early on poor experiences, but then made me not want to try them again. And but now I'm just noticing leaps and bounds. Now whenever I use Siri, or when I'm using YouTube and it's recommending videos for me, it's getting so good at recommending things that I want to watch or listen to.
Well, that's fantastic. That's what we want.
It is fantastic. It's so much better. And even when I'm asking Siri questions, and now I could even ask follow-up questions, and it remembers what I just asked. It's brilliant. It's becoming more human.
Well, for sure. And one of the challenges people have had with the Siris and the Alexas and that initially was, if you had a bit of a dialect or an accent, like you spoke with a Southern drawl or a Bostonian accent, it had trouble recognizing what you were saying. And now the technology's evolved. There's a company of Australia that, they have a AI voice recognition system that's so good that you're saying 6 or 7 phrases, the AI picks up your own personal voice patterns.
Oh, wow.
It recognizes the way you specifically pronounce words, and now can handle that voice recognition to do whatever you want, whatever you need to do, whether that's, say commands, ask Alexa to do something, translate into another language. So imagine we're getting to the point now where we can at least have a digital assistant that actually understands exactly what we're trying to say.
Yeah, no doubt. That is so cool. I wasn't aware of the language, dialects and the challenges computers have, but that is so cool that they figured out a way to help solve that.
Testament to the amazing times we're living in.
Yeah, that is so true. So I got to tell you this story too, Neil. So I was mentioning I've been using this anxiety stress bot, and the goal is really to help me kind of be less stressed, less anxious. And so when I was chatting with it, when it was 3 a.m, I woke up anxious, and I was just just checking in to set my anxiety level. And So the bot was like, so what do you like to do to relax? It was like early on when I was first starting with this app, and I was like, oh, I like to watch like Seinfeld. I love like goofy comedies. And so I just typed in like love to watch Seinfeld and goofy comedies like that. And then the AI immediately responded back like, oh, isn't it a bummer that like it's no longer being produced? Like it actually researched, like immediately it like checked to see Seinfeld's still being recorded, and like realized that, oh, it was recorded in the '90s and it's no longer, you can only watch streaming now. And I was like, isn't that brilliant?
It's funny, Michael, that a couple of days ago I was actually having a conversation with a few people, and Seinfeld came up, and we're talking about how much we love the show, and we were actually speculating that if Seinfeld were on today, what would they talk about with technology like artificial intelligence? What would they do with Twitter? So it was a fascinating thought experiment.
I think Kramer would be an Uber driver.
Oh my God, for sure.
Right. Just like, because he didn't need a job, he just like picking up people, and he'd probably doing some crazy things. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would be hilarious. Seinfeld today, that would be brilliant. Yeah, no, it's just great. I mean, I just watching this evolution and seeing things improve, and then watching my own kids using like Siri and watching how they ask questions, and then the follow-up questions, and then like Siri's pretty good at like giving them the answers that they're looking for. And I'm like, oh wow, this is like leaps and bounds what it was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, but think about this, Michael. The progress we've made in the last like 4 or 5 years, where is this technology going to be 5 years from today? All right. Is it going to be so much better? Are we going to have like a little AR or VR avatar we're going to be, talking to now? I mean, the possibilities are just fascinating.
Yeah, no doubt. I was even, it was so funny, Neil. I was talking with a friend, and he had written a book in personal finance, and he was promoting his book, and he just did like you do like the audio version. You read your book and you send it in. Like we're coming to the point where like you won't even have to do that anymore. Like it'll just, you know what I mean? Like Neil, you just like say a couple sentences, and it's like, okay, I'll do the whole book in Neil's voice.
Well, I don't know if you heard, about a week ago, these guys had developed an AI, and it's really good at mimicking not just the voice, but the inflection, the tone
Really?
of a person. And they actually did a fake Joe Rogan podcast. So this AI was talking like, it sounded like Joe Rogan. It sounded the words, the slang and stuff he would use.
Really?
Kind of pitch. We're talking about topics I don't think Joe's talked about yet. And that's how you knew it wasn't real. But if you heard it, it's like you could not tell. You really couldn't tell.
Oh my gosh. And that's like it's brilliant. It's amazing that, potentially, I mean, the fun stuff you can do with like taking historical people from the past, where you have some voice recordings or some video of them, and be able to create new like scenes or something like that. That's like creatively and artistically a lot of fun stuff. But then like obviously the dangerous things that go with that, like, oh, you can have our sitting president, saying something that is very destructive.
It's true, and that's a good example of why this technology can be used to create or destroy. That's why it's a tool. But I think that's a really good point you make, Michael, because a lot of the focus I see today, like with the United Nations and other organizations, is on the moral and ethical use of artificial intelligence, right? What's a good practice? What's a bad practice? Where might bias creep into the way the machines get trained? Because they have these capabilities like you're talking about, but we're also relying on them to make recommendations and in some cases decisions. So how do we know that it's trustworthy? And I think that's the big thing for us to overcome these days is how do we establish a certain level of comfort? How do we establish truth in what we're using?
Yeah, that's that's super, super challenging. And thinking about how you almost need an AI like overseeing other AIs to help kind of detect fraud.
Well, that's actually something that I've seen people kind of bandy forth, not specifically in fraud, but in terms of trying to detect bias. Right? There was,
Mm.
I think it was like a year and a half ago. With all the talk about fake news, there were two guys that said, "Can we build an AI to detect fake news?" And they realized it was too difficult. There's too many variations of fake news to uncover. And then they had the epiphany: could we teach an AI how to identify real news? And that worked like a charm because
Mm.
real news is a more finite space. It's much easier to say these are the real elements of something that would be real news. And so then by default, if you can just say this is real news, you can tell everything else is fake. So the
Mm.
question is, can we do the same thing with bias? Could we do the same thing with fraud, right? Do we have to say this is a fraudulent transaction, or does this look like a real transaction, right? Does this
Yeah,
have the
yeah,
elements that this is actually a real transaction?
yeah, yeah. That's fascinating. Gosh, and so much is happening in technology, and then like um, to your point about just all the ethical concerns that go along with that. Um, so how like for organizations that are um, developing AIs and obviously like a lot of companies are trying to develop things to improve our world to make things go better, but some of these things can be abused and bad things can come from it, especially when bias creeps in or um, if some of these ethical issues aren't sorted out ahead of time. What sorts of teams, Neil, should companies or organizations bring on to help them think through this AI that they want to develop so that they're um, helping as much as possible to reduce horrible bias or and also like the ethical decisions that the AI might need to make?
That's a great question, Michael. And I think this is where this is the importance of diversity and inclusion.
Hmm.
First and foremost, AI is not just the realm of technologists. I know a lot of people think that, but we need other people to be part of this. Technologists, they're really smart guys. They can do amazing things, but they may not know the industry or the domain that well, or they may not have enough different perspective to see what might happen. An example of that is, a couple of years ago, Google, they have their Google Vision, the image recognition software, really powerful, does a fantastic job. But back then, it had an issue in recognizing people. If you were a white man, it could tell, but if you were a woman or a minority, it had challenges. And I
Hmm.
don't think Google was trying to be sexist or discriminatory in any kind of way.
Right.
It just so happens that the people that built it, trained it, most of them were probably white men. And in teaching the concept of like what's a person, what's a human, odds are they were using pictures of themselves as part of that. And so the way the AI got trained was in that respect. And I think that's a good
Yeah.
example of where we need diversity. If we had a more diverse team, that might have popped up much earlier. Google has since obviously fixed that.
Yeah.
That's a very just simple example. And it's not one that even consciously we realize. And so one, having that diversity and inclusion is really important. Two, you know, the ability to proactively think about what might happen, to think about how people might use this technology or different kinds of outcomes. We can't always think happy path. We have to think about the exceptions. And so people that are good at critical thinking, people that are imaginative, people that are good at like those kind of thought exercises, like almost philosophers,
Hmm.
are critical to have part of this team. You think about self-driving car, we always hear the trolley example. If you get the self-driving car gets into a situation where it has to hit between one of two people, which one do you hit? It's a good example of that kind of proactive thinking.
Yeah, I love just how you started this off talking about the importance of diversity and inclusion. into these conversations, because that goes into every area, whether it's gender, ethnicity, as you talked about, industry experience, and also even industry that you're in, academics, philosophy, ethicists. Like having all that input can only make your AI better.
Absolutely, and
Oh, Neil. Oh, there you are. I just got cut out. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just saying, one of the things I like to talk about is the future of work, because people are always wondering where the jobs are going to be. And a lot of people say it's like, okay, it's STEM, right? We need more data scientists, people that know AI, machine learning, robotics, engineering. And that's very true. But I think we need more people that are going to be good at this kind of these thought exercises. People that are good critical thinkers. They can look at complex tasks, that they're imaginative, creative, that they can think about the experience we're trying to craft. And I think because of that, there's going to be a lot more demand for people with skills in philosophy and the arts.
I think that is right on. I think that's the right path. I think we need more critical thinkers, more diverse perspectives. I think, what you're saying about diversity is going to be extremely important in the future as you're trying to develop AIs that are going to, you're trying to reduce as much bias and as much ethical problems as possible. And so the earlier on you can get in these diverse teams and perspectives involved, the better off you're going to be, and then course correct along the way.
100% true, Michael. And that's why we have to bring all these people together. And this really, I think, drives home the point that collaboration, interpersonal skills, communication are going to be even more critical in the future. Because everything we're going to do, all these people need to come together and work effectively if we're going to be able to do great things.
No doubt. Have you, as you've been working and talking with different leaders and different organizations, as you have like consulted and led discussions with different teams, are you seeing like signs of like what we're talking about and what you're saying about like bringing in people with diverse perspectives into the mix? Are you seeing that happening tangibly?
Slowly. I'm seeing it slowly. Because it's an eye opener. If you think about the quote unquote traditional way we've been doing work, especially like, IT type of projects, this is a whole new approach. I mean, we're thinking differently here. And you're just trying to see people realizing they need a diverse skill set. There's a company actually in Irvine working on a really creative artificial empathy solution for customer service. And yeah, they're called Buy and Install, and they're going out, they're trying to hire really great architects and data scientists and programmers, all these guys, and we're actually talking about that. They're like, are there any gaps and all this kind of stuff? And I'm looking, I'm like, well, where are your psychologists? Right, number one. They're like, psychologists, like, well, do your architects and data scientists and your programmers know psychology? They know what empathy is, how it works, how to look for triggers, signs, and then they're looking at you like, oh my God, we didn't really think of that right off the bat. You're right. And they're like, but how do we get psychologists who work with a IT team? Right. Yeah. And then like, what else do we need? And they start talking about it. They realize they need different types of domain experience, they need different types of experts. And they're like, the way we have to craft the team is going to be completely different. The way they're going to work is going to be different. But they're off to the races now doing that. But
oh yeah, I love that.
It's that big inflection point that I see companies are just starting to realize that maybe subconsciously you kind of get it, but the proof's in the pudding, so to speak. It's until you start trying to do it, you realize just how different it is. And it's a mindset to make it happen. You really have to get the buy-in and figure out the right way to structure this so you get that good collaboration.
That is so cool. I love that. Yeah, getting these like two groups that normally wouldn't be talking, the psychologists, right, and the IT team, the technologists and like getting them together. Like that is so key, like to helping make the products better. Like getting them all talking is like the best possible thing you can do.
Look, it's common. I know we're also, it's common sense. It seems obvious, but the thing is, we don't really do it that often, and I think as we move forward, that has to change. There's just no way around it. If we want to build that truth and trust in technology, that's going to happen.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, just thinking on the psychology end, as you're developing, let's just say like this is going to be an AI around, counseling or empathy and reducing anxiety or stress. Like you'd want a bot that, would help to, begin to recognize what type of individual is this from a personality basis. So I can draw more out of this person. Is this person introverted, extroverted? What personality type are they? All these different elements can only make the AI like ask better questions to help draw out that person. But it's going to be based on like these psychological profiles.
No, absolutely. And, there's another startup called Cyrano AI. It was started by a therapist and a neurolinguist. And they're basically analyzing what people are saying, word choice, structure, tone, all these things to identify, level of commitment and seriousness. They first started going on this path. They wanted to be able to help, depressed teens and see, if they're suicidal, could you help them? And they realized, a lot of people talk, and sometimes you're not sure, is this person really planning to commit suicide or not?
Right.
They built an AI that can judge that level of commitment or not and say, okay, this person is seriously thinking about doing this. We need to get them help.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. That is fascinating. And so that's like a brilliant use, like using an AI to help to get people that need help quickly that normally maybe they wouldn't have, but because the bot is involved, the bot knows something that the counselor doesn't know because the person maybe feels more comfortable sharing their real thoughts. And then at that point, there's that ethical issue of like, okay, how quickly, when do we get, medical, help to this person?
Absolutely. But this is also a great example of where building that trust in technology is really important. And the Cyrano guys realized that there's obviously, some hesitancy and resistance. And when they first were thinking about testing this out, they realized this might be a little too dangerous, right? Because if something does go wrong, it's somebody's life. And so they said, can we find an innocuous place where we could test it out? And they actually said, how about buying a car? And so they said, well, the worst thing that could happen there is somebody loses a sale. And so they started
right. They're trying to get a car. So there's not a life or death situation there.
Yeah, and so they started working with a couple of auto dealerships, and just based on like chatbot conversations, they were actually able to tell, is this person like seriously interested in buying a car like today? Are they just kind of looking and maybe just want to do a test drive, but not planning to buy maybe in the next 6 months? Or is this person just kind of fishing around? They're not really interested in buying a car at this moment. And that pilot actually worked out really well. By doing that, people realized, wow, what they've done, the science behind it is legitimate. Because they had that benchmark now, they were actually able to build the trust in the other spaces, like in mental health.
Yeah, it comes down to that trust. That's right. And that's an interesting, that's a very interesting example of like taking a technology, being used to build rapport, build trust, and then get, and also figure out like how truthful are these statements. And interesting how they're taking something that was maybe used for mental health and then training it on these not life-threatening situations, more about, is this person really serious about buying a car? Or, as they're interviewing at a company, is this person being honest in the interview?
Yep.
And I think that's also kind of scary too, right? Because you think about, you're applying for a job, and I already know there's technology out there that's doing this. you're on a video call and you're doing your interview, and people are already nervous enough doing a job interview, and then you have this AI like determining like level of honesty in your voice, and you could just be freaked out.
You see a little bar on your screen. This person is lying.
Yeah. They're nodding yes, but they're saying no. Yeah, those are all the things that like that freak us out. That's where the fear comes in.
It's going to make life interesting, but at the same time, I think it's a unique opportunity for us as people, in that we have actually a unique opportunity to explore what it means to be human. It might help us actually make us more human, because we really have to understand our own selves. Like, there's actually an initiative called Loving AI, and it's a consortium of people, but it's based out of Africa. And their goal is to say, could we teach a machine about unconditional love?
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. And I mean, you think about it, because I think if you can do that, that takes like artificial empathy to a whole new level. But you think about it, you have a 24/7, 365 companion. Like, you think elderly care, they'll always have someone there that loves them no matter what. It's not going to get frustrated. It's going to be there to help them.
Yeah.
But in trying to do this, to teach the machine unconditional love, they had to first understand, what really is that? How do you define the concept of love, and how does that work? How does it not work? And so it became this really deep kind of experiment into ourselves about, how do we feel? How do we function? What does it really mean to be human and loved? So it was very eye-opening experience for the team. And I think more of those opportunities are going to keep popping up. And I think for us, just as people in general, it's a great opportunity for us to explore ourselves. I know that we're always busy, got a lot of stuff going on, but here's an interesting chance to kind of self-reflect and say, what does it really mean to be human?
Yeah, I think that is I love that. It's a very beautiful idea. An AI that will be very, quote, loving unconditionally and caring. That can open up so many doors. I'm thinking about just the examples of, as you get older and maybe your partner passes away, and you're going to, no doubt you're going to be very, very sad. You can get depressed, and having an AI that would actually, like, maybe it was even kind of trained by your partner in advance, to kind of help you along through those stages of grief. And then also kind of like, hey, maybe you should consider like going out to the beach today, giving you little prompts, or, make sure that you're, doing some basic things to take care of yourself. And the AI is like there to kind of like comfort and care for you, like your partner would, who just passed away.
Yeah, I'm curious, Michael, do you watch Black Mirror?
No, I have not seen Black Mirror, but everyone says I should watch it.
It's a great show. Ironically, what you're talking about was actually an episode where, a wife loses her husband in a car accident, and she's having trouble coping. And there's actually a service out there that they could take all his social media, his videos and stuff, and generate a machine personality that she could chat with. Now,
interesting.
There's some, unfortunately, upsells, and they take it to a whole new level. That's Black Mirror. But it's an example of how it could be helpful and how it could also go crazy or awry. That's why we live in exciting and scary times. But what you're talking about, in theory, could be done. So again, I think it begs the question of what's the moral and ethical practices around this? How much is enough and how much is too much?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think, just thinking about the examples of, like, for people who don't have, for whatever reason, they don't have that, close family, close friends around, and they're very much alone. And it seems like an AI can definitely help in those situations. But yeah, you're right. Like, there are so many, like, things that can go wrong. What are the lines where these are all the reasons why we need philosophers and ethicists and creative people to like get in those conversations.
Well, for sure, but you're actually hitting on a really important point. If I remember the stats correctly, loneliness is the number one mental illness in the world. It's estimated, I think, about a third of the people worldwide suffer from loneliness, and about 40% of people in the United States suffer from loneliness. So if you had an AI buddy to chat with, that could alleviate some of that, angst, some of that loneliness.
Yeah, no doubt. And also for the people who don't feel like I don't want to bother somebody with my issues or whatever it is. Because a lot of people feel that way too. Like some people will become lonely, because I've gone down that path too, where, well, I don't want to bother anybody with my issues, so I'm just gonna, be by myself. But a bot, an AI that was built to like care and kind of, I think the goal of the bot would be really to like get you back into like society, like chatting with people, and I think that would be one of the goals, I would hope.
I know that there are people thinking about it and experimenting, trying to figure out what could be done and what would make sense.
Yeah.
So there's just a wealth of opportunity out there. It's just up to us, though, to try and embrace and figure out what can we do, what makes sense, and how we build trust around it.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. There's so many exciting times. This is an exciting period. This is a fascinating period, and I love that you're giving hope to the humanities majors like me. Because you read all the headlines, and it's pretty much like, if you're not a data scientist, you're out of luck.
Well, that's definitely not the right thinking.
So, reminder to everyone, we're chatting with Neil Sahota. He's the author of the brand new book called Own the AI Revolution: Unlock Your Artificial Intelligence Strategy to Disrupt Your Competition. You can Google it, get it on Amazon. Neil, your brand new book, a lot of the things we've been chatting about are in this book. What were some of the things that you felt were super important to address as you were thinking about, okay, I'm going to write this book on AI and how it can disrupt business, how it can be used for good? What were some of the core things, some of the core messages you had in mind when writing this?
That's a great question. I mean, my overall goal was just to help people. It really was, because I just seen what was going on the last few years. There were a lot of questions, and a lot of those questions were not getting answered or not being addressed. And I wanted to write a book that actually would address those questions for people. And so I really focused on education, empowerment, and enablement. So education, very simple. This is for non-technical people, just exactly what is AI and what is it not. And then I want to empower people. I want to feel like, look, you don't have to be the passenger. You can be the driver. And, here's how you, as a non-technical person, can figure out what you can do with this technology. How can you solve a problem? How can you take advantage of an opportunity? And then enablement. I wanted people to understand how they get started. And that seems to be one of the big challenges today, where, okay, now I have an idea. How do I actually start rolling with it? And so the book is really focused around those three things. And there's several conversations in the book with, big thought leaders like Peter Diamandis of Singularity University and X Prize, and Stephen Kotler and Stephen Baraki and Michael Gerber. But there are also conversations with, quote unquote, regular people about what they've done. Like, there's a conversation with Legalmation. It was 3 lawyers, 0 technical knowledge, that wound up building an AI lawyer. In fact, it's worked out so well. They have so much demand for it that they've sold off their firm and have committed to their startup full time. And people just like, they're just blown away by that. It's like, how could 3 lawyers with no technical experience do something
Yeah.
like this? You gotta read their story, because that what they did is exactly the way you do it, right? You don't need to be a savant. You don't need to be a technical expert. You don't have to take a bunch of classes in machine learning or data science. First and foremost, you gotta think about what's the problem you want to solve, and then what's the expertise, the knowledge you need for that, and how do you make sure you have the right diversity and inclusion to build a trustworthy and special AI.
I love that. It gives a lot of hope for those of us that are not on the technical side, to begin thinking about how can I get involved in this movement? What can I contribute? And the things you were sharing about just we need diverse and inclusive teams. We need different perspectives. It's wonderful that you don't have the technical side. We need your thinking. We need your critical questions. Like all of that is like, what I love about your message, Neil, is that you're very inclusive. You're like, get in, like this movement's happening. Like everyone can get involved in this.
I'm a big believer in it, and it's not like this stuff is going to stop, right? These changes that are going to happen, whether people love them or hate them. I want to give people the opportunity to not just ride the wave, but be a pioneer in it. Help shape the wave. You have a chance to actually shape your own future and shape the future for either your organization, your family, whatever motivates you. And I want people to have that opportunity to embrace that challenge. And that's really why I wrote the book.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful message, and it's a call to action for all of us to get involved, stay up on the news, be thinking about what you can be doing at your work, or things that are important to you in life, and figuring out how can I get involved, how can I contribute to this technology, to this AI, whatever it is. Because you're right. This is a pioneering stage, and we can all get involved.
Oh, for sure. And I hope this inspires people to, if nothing else, learn a little bit and see what opportunities they do have.
No doubt. The book is called Own the AI Revolution. I have a short URL that goes right over to Neil's Amazon page. The URL is just ex.pn/revolution, and that'll bring you right over to Amazon. Or if you just want to do a Google search, again, just search for Own the AI Revolution, or search for Neil Sahota, NeilSahota, and just follow him on LinkedIn. And Neil, you're doing so much work. Where's the best place for people to follow you or connect with you?
The best places are LinkedIn and Twitter. I tend to post regularly and share information, and you always feel free to message me through those platforms as well.
Awesome. And also, for those who don't know, the book's kind of divided into 2 awesome parts. There's the ton of thought leadership, and then towards the end, Neil has all these awesome interviews with business leaders around these different themes, which Neil is getting into around medicine and health and different areas like that. So check it out. Own the AI Revolution. Super exciting. Neil, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Michael. And to all your audience out there, I hope this was helpful, useful, fun, and I hope you #own the revolution.
Awesome. I will make sure to do that in my tweets today.
All right.
Own the revolution. Awesome. Thank you so much, Neil.
Hey, thanks, Michael. Have a wonderful day.
You too.